Morning, Donnie here. Bit cooler today, kind of nice. Yesterday was intensely hot, 35 degrees up here in Canada, Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. 90, I don't know. Yeah, wow, we had all the fans going at work and drinking lots of water. It was a long day. I started early porting and ran a bunch of saws and worked hard. Went out and helped my parents, like I said. Had some surf and turf. Yeah, I was bushed. Didn't get to cut my lawn, which I should tonight if it doesn't rain. I had a fella comment about this 372 oiler oiling too much, and which is kind of weird. You know, you do have an adjustment on the bottom, but sometimes they can malfunction, or maybe you got a hole or a slice in the casting or something. But I'll show you some stuff here on the oilers right now, and you know everyone never services them, you know, and you should. So what I do with some customers is when they come in with saws and tune them up, I do take the oilers out and I check the screens to make sure they're clear so the guy's getting sufficient oil. This is an older model 575, 576 series, which went over not bad around here, but they ended up scrapping this models. I had a lot of issues with bearings and crankcases cracking because we overbar the saws here in the West Coast. So here's your typical clutch on a Husky. It's pretty much the same on almost all models. So under the clutch, the clutch drum drives the worm gear. The worm gear is a gear that spins around underneath this clutch and drives the oiler gear to suck the oil out of the crankcase, into the pump, into the hose, and onto your bar. A lot of times on these saws, for years on 372s and these saws, you see this adjuster? This thing is a multiple adjuster. I think it's like 4 turns open for like long bars, a couple turns for short. What happened, a lot of guys would unscrew these to try to get more oil because they had a problem with their worm gear or the screen being plugged in the tank. So they keep turning that out, then it eventually breaks, or something hits here and breaks this, so they just leak oil out here. Another problem with them using too much oil, leaking oil, is get this thing held in here, right? Hang on a sec. Is the oil pipe. The oil pipe from the clutch or from the oil pump on the 372 and 65s are like a little brass pipe, then it goes up into a little grommet here where your oil comes out. This one has a rubber line, but same thing can happen. So if you break a clutch spring or some debris gets in there, the odd time you'll crack the oil pump, or that pipe gets a hole in it. Hose, pipe, whatever you have on your model. I like the system on the 390 because they just have the 3 clicks to it, like a still, where you only have a certain range you can go so you don't damage the oiler. Unfortunately, they don't make the oil hoses long enough where if you take the oil cap off and go inside the oiler compartment, you can't pull the hose out to clean the screen. A little hard to see in there. There's a screen in there though. Yeah, you can see the hose kind of in there, but yeah, unfortunately you can't pull them out this way to clean the screen. So you physically have to take the clutch off and take the oiler off and clean it. And a lot of times the debris will even be right into the oiler hose or tube. So you really need to take it right apart and blow the whole pump out and everything. You can rebuild the oil pumps. You can buy new pinions, drives and stuff for them, but I never really do. I usually just replace them. Sometimes even the body gets damaged if it's guys had a lot of crap going through it. Some guys even use motor oil, which isn't the best. but it works if that's all you got, you know. It's hard on it. You got to think of used motor oil. It's got grit in it from obviously the motor that it came out of. So that grit will damage the drive pump of the oiler. So you know what? I don't recommend using used oil unless you really have to. If you don't have a store around that has chain oil for sale, either chain oil, you know, you got summer, winter grades too. You know, here in BC, we pretty much use medium grade all the time. Unless it's, you know, get an extreme cold winter, which doesn't happen here that often anymore. But then you want to use a light oil because it's just too thick. It's like syrup and you can't get it through the oil pump as good. Or if it's too thin, it just runs off and doesn't stay on the bar, you know, it just runs down and you're feeding the ground instead of your chain. Yeah, but you know what? Most oilers are very reliable these days. You know, like a lot of years ago on like old Stills and McKellas and stuff, they used the crankcase pressure, the vacuum pressure, and that ran the pump in the McKella, or in the Still they had a similar system. They used to have in like 075s and maybe 045s and stuff. They had the oiler was in the front of the saw, and it ran off the crankshaft, like a little cam lobe off the crankshaft. What would happen to those sometimes is the little O-rings for that pump when the saw's old. So if you get a really old Still in the thing, it won't pull over because it's hydraulic. It's because the chain oil is leaking into the motor. So those O-rings deteriorate, and the chain oil goes into the motor. So you're not going to burn your motor up, but you won't be able to pull it over because it's got all this chain oil in it. So you need to take that pump out of the front and replace the O-rings on it. And it has a rubber sleeve too in there, this grommet that deteriorates too, and the same thing will happen. But like I say, most oilers these days work great. And you know, a guy should service it once in a while. You know, if you've got 6 months on a saw or something, you know, you think about every time you've taken this cap on and off, you know, what happens? There's always build up, like you see on this cap. So stuff's falling into your oil pot or your oil chamber. And, you know, that's what clogs the screen and whatnot. Pretty basic. It would be nice if the oil souls came out of here, though, eh? Eh, for sure, eh? But like I say, you got to do it the other way. You take the clutch off, oiler off. You got to remember on all saws that are inboard clutch drive are left-hand thread. So righty loosey, lefty tighty. This is a clutch tool for a Husqvarna. You can use a piston stop, or sometimes you use a starter rope method down the spark plug hole. Just be careful when you put the rope down the spark plug hole. Have the piston at top dead center, roll it back about an inch, then roll it up against the rope. Do not get it caught in the transfer ports, or you're going to have to take that saw apart. Seen it done 100 times. Piston stop works the best. Tool fits on the clutch. Once it's locked up, you give this a good smack or a really good jar and you'll get it off. Some of them get on there pretty hard, so sometimes you got to have this tool on there with a pipe on it, a Johnson, and it helps you leverage to get it off. Or at my other shop where I do all my main work, I have it on a socket. It's a socket type, so I use a 1/2-inch impact and bam, it comes off instantly. Yeah, take the clutch off, oiler off, pull it right out, clean all your hoses, clean inside the pump, spin it around. You'll see the little paddle that moves the oil. Just blow that out, and then you're pretty much done. They pretty much all work well except for the gunging there, or like I say, the oiler gear itself could be stripped. The oiler gears only really strip if the pump gets jammed up with stuff, because then it won't move, so it strips to the plastic gear. Or if you have a bearing failure on the saw and the crank's moving up and down, then that gear will wear weird in that oiler and and wreck it as well. So yeah, man, that's about it on Oilers, I guess. Yeah, okay. So gonna do a couple 390s right now for a friend of mine, Rick. One used one and a new one. And go back and assemble them and see what the guys are doing. So yeah, hopefully that helps you with your oiler. I just don't understand you saying you're gonna like block it off and stuff so it doesn't oil so much. It just seems weird, and it's nothing to do with the high performance of that saw. Even though you've put the Wiseco piston in or whatever you've done there, I've done tons of them, man, tons of them, and I don't have that problem. So I don't really know. Is it using too much or is it leaking? So that's one thing you gotta look for there, buddy, is that pipe for a hole in it, the hose, or the oiler itself. Well, one time a clutch spring broke and it's wore a hole in it, so it's leaking out. Or that adjuster on the bottom. Hopefully that'll help you. If not, I don't know what to say. You could always throw another oiler on it, and maybe that'll work. Okay. Keep sawing wood, rub on the road, stick on the ice. Have a great day. It's June. Yeah.